Welcome to Cryptic Accounts, a podcast by paranoid people for paranoid people. And this week on the show, we're covering the House of 200 Demons. I'm Patrick Ryan, joined by Dennis Janey. Hi, Dennis.
Hello, Patrick.
Welcome, everyone. We appreciate you being here once again. We appreciate everything you're doing. Keep sharing, subscribing, liking, telling your friends about it, writing us nice things, commenting on the stuff we're doing on the YouTube page, through iTunes, through Facebook, Twitter, all the places. Find us, and yeah, we appreciate it.
Check out our latest cryptic headlines. It should be
Yes.
dropped by the time this comes out.
Yeah, those have been fun. The short videos we've been doing that are just current stories from that week, pretty much. Like, I don't know that they're always going to be from that day or week or whatever, but here lately we've been doing like recent ones. And you've been coming up with some really fun ones.
All right, you're gonna try to scare me this week, I assume.
Oh, did the title of this week's episode make you think maybe it might be a little bit scary?
Yeah, it's gonna be a spooktacular.
Yeah, we haven't veered in this direction in a little bit, and this kind of came out of I kind of stumbled on this story, and then we got to do it. So let's go and get into it. As usual, all the source information is available at crypticaccounts.com under the sources tab. So, Dennis, Police Captain Charles Austin was a 36-year veteran of the Gary Police Department in Indianapolis, I'm sorry. And he said he initially thought Indianapolis resident Latoya Ammons and her family concocted an elaborate tale as a way to make money. But after several visits to their home and interviews with witnesses, Austin said simply, quote, "I am a believer." So not everyone involved with the family was inclined to believe this incredible story, though, but it led to one of the most unusual cases ever handled by the Department of Child Services.
Oh, the government's involved in this. That's
Yes.
all right.
Many of the events that we're going to talk about are detailed in nearly 800 pages of official records and were recounted in more than a dozen interviews with police, DCS personnel, multiple news outlets, psychologists, family members, and priests.
Ooh, Halloween's
Eight,
come early. Oh, this is I don't like this type of stuff. I like The Exorcist. It freaks me out.
800 pages of official documents. There was a lot.
That's a lot. It's
Yeah.
really unusual for like police or like agencies to get involved with ghosts.
Yeah, it is pretty uncommon. This one got a lot of attention, though. So, Latoya Ammons, who swears by her story, was unusually open about it. While she spoke on condition her children not be interviewed or named, she signed releases letting reporters see medical, psychological, and official records that are usually not open to the public. So that's
Wow.
how we have access to this some 800 pages of documents because she released it all.
Okay.
So, in November of 2011, Amon's family, Latoya, her mother Rosa Campbell, and her three children, a 12-year-old girl and a 9 and 7-year-old boy, so she has three kids, moved into a rental house on Carolina Street in Gary, Indianapolis. Or Gary, I'm sorry, I don't know, sorry about that. In Indiana's the state, I don't know why I just did that.
I was saying earlier,
That's why I screwed it up earlier.
The Gary Police Department in Indianapolis. I'm like, what?
Look.
But sometimes there's like suburbs.
Look, there's two things I'm never going to claim on this show, that I'm great at geography or that I'm great at pronouncing most names.
I'm the same way.
So, in Indiana, Gary, Indiana, they moved to Carolina Street, a quiet line street with small one-story homes. Suddenly, after they moved in, big black flies began swarming their screened-in porch in December, despite the winter chill.
Oh, weird.
"This is not normal," said Rosa Campbell's, remembering the event. She said, "We killed them and killed them and killed them, but they kept coming."
Ooh, freaky.
So yeah, that's not a typical thing. You don't usually see a ton of flies in the Midwest
In the middle of winter.
December.
No, that's like a summer thing or a demonic thing.
I mean, even in the summer, that's a lot to just continue to be able to kill. And they talked when they talked about it, like they said there was just tons of them,
Oh,
like
that's freaky.
unusually large amounts of them.
It's like straight out of a horror movie.
Yeah. So there were other strange happenings that began too. Campbell and Ammons both said they occasionally heard the steady clump and creaking of footsteps climbing the basement stairs late at night and a creak of the door opening between the basement and the kitchen. But when they'd look, nobody was there.
Oh no. All right.
So so that all happens and they decide, all right, shut the door, lock it. So they
Mhm.
lock it, go to bed, and nights go on where this continues to happen, even with the door locked. They still hear the footsteps, they still hear the door open.
Can't lock a ghost out.
So Campbell said she awoke one night. This is the grandmother. Said she awoke one night and saw a shadowy figure of a man pacing in her living room. She leaped out of bed to investigate and found large, wet boot prints all over the living room.
Oh no.
On December 10th, 2012, so they've been there a few months now. This is like 3 or 4 months in, like 4 months in. Campbell said the family's unease turned to fear. It was about 2 a.m., and normally Campbell, Ammons, and her children would have been asleep. But they were mourning the death of a loved one with a group of friends. So they had a bunch of people over. Um, and Ammons, who was in Campbell's bedroom, startled everyone by screaming, "Mama, Mama." So the mom starts yelling for the grandmother. Campbell said she ran into her bedroom where she saw the 12-year-old granddaughter and a friend were, I'm sorry, where her 12-year-old granddaughter and a friend were staying. Ammons and Campbell said the 12-year-old was levitating above
No.
the bed, unconscious.
No.
And there's several people there, all these friends and stuff run into the room. They all gave accounts about
They all
this.
see this. Oh my gosh. Okay. Man, usually a demon like this, they're not this brazen.
I
They just
know.
doing this stuff in front of everyone.
Very quickly, too. So, according to their accounts of the events, Ammons and several others surrounded the girl praying. Campbell said she remembered being terrified. Campbell said, "I thought, what's going on?" And she also said, "Why is this happening?" So I'm like, all right, yeah, that would be my
That
reaction.
would be a natural
What is going
reaction.
on? Why is this happening? Uh, Eventually, Campbell said her granddaughter descended onto the bed. The girl woke up with no memory of what had happened. So again,
Oh,
this isn't just the family saying this. They have friends over that are also seeing this happen.
right.
Campbell and Amon said the people who were visiting that night refused to return.
Oh yeah, Pat, I
Oh
love you,
boy.
but I would not be over at your house if I saw someone levitating in
Also, yeah, your kids are not allowed to play with my kids anymore. I'm sorry.
it. No.
Now, it is important to note that there are several versions of this story. In her interview with the television show Inside Edition, Ammons did not use the word levitated in describing the event. Instead, Ammons said in that interview, it is a demon, as what she's referring to, attacked and raised her up off the bed, snatched her up off the bed. If the action was a quick flight instead of prolonged floating, some argue that it's possible that the girl could generate the lurch herself, but I don't get that out of.
First
I
of all,
saw,
she doesn't say it's quick there. She just says it was a demon that did it. And then also, how could multiple people see it if it just happened like that?
yeah, that was kind of my argument. But that was something that I noted. I just wanted to know that there were several people that kind of made this argument, like when I was like researching all this.
Hmm.
But again, everybody else describes it as like a floating thing. It's just I don't know.
Well, it. I don't see anything in that statement that contradicts levitation. It says a demon attacked and raised her up off the bed. It
Yeah,
doesn't say for how long. So,
I'm just saying there's a little bit of disbelief going on. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
casting some doubt. I believe in this stuff, man. So I'm like, oh yeah, this is totally happening.
Campbell says she remembers telling her daughter, "We need help. We need to talk to someone who knows how to deal with it." Campbell and Ammons said they didn't know exactly what it was, but they believed it was something supernatural. They called local churches, but most refused to listen to them. Eventually, after listening to Campbell and Ammons talk about the house and visiting it, officials at one church told them the Carolina Street house had spirits in it. They recommended the family clean the home with bleach and ammonia, then use oil to draw crosses on every door and window. At,
Okay.
at the church's suggestion, Ammon said she poured olive oil on her three children's hands and feet, then smeared oil in the shape of crosses on their foreheads.
It's a good start.
Campbell and Ammons also told the Indianapolis Star they reached out to two clairvoyants as well, who said the family's home was besieged by more than 200 demons.
Oh my gosh.
Their explanation made sense to Campbell and Ammons. The best thing you can do is move, Ammon remembers the clairvoyants telling her, but moving wasn't an option for the cash-strapped family. So they're stuck there.
Man. I wonder if they had a landlord. Did it say they bought the house or they were renting it?
No, they're renting.
Oh man, I'd be so mad at my landlord.
So instead, Ammon said she took a clairvoyant's advice and made an altar in the basement. Ammons covered an end table with a white sheet, then placed a white candle and statue of Mary, Joseph, and Jesus on it. She opened a Bible to Psalm 91. She said she and another person donned white t-shirts and wound white scarves around their heads. Also, on a clairvoyant's advice, they burned sage and sulfur throughout the house, starting upstairs and working their way down. The smoke was so thick they could hardly breathe. Ammons drew a cross with smoke. The person she was with read Psalm 91 aloud as they moved through the house. Quote, "You will not fear for the terror of the night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the darkness, nor the plague that destroys at midday." Ammon said nothing odd happened for 3 days. Then things got worse.
Oh no. Oh no, they just ticked them off. First of all, 200 demons. That's a lot of demons, man. Like,
That's
what
a
are they just
lot
like?
of demons.
Did
This
they
is
just
not a
like
big
hang out
house.
together? I know it's not even a big house. Like, why would you even want to live in a house with 200
Like
people?
that would make it so, like literally anywhere you walked in this house, you'd basically be walking through a demon.
Yeah, it's like a concert.
Like a
It'd be like,
standing room only in this
yeah.
house for demons.
Ugh.
Ugh, I know, right?
It's weird they just picked this one random.
So the family said demons possessed Latoya and her children. The kids' eyes bulged, evil smiles crossed their faces, and their voices deepened every time it happened. This is according to Campbell and Ammons. Campbell said the demons didn't affect her because she was born with protection from evil. She said she and others like her have a guardian who protects them.
Okay.
Ammons, however, said she felt weak, lightheaded, and warm when she was possessed. Her body shook, and she said she felt out of control. Quote, "You can tell it's different, something supernatural." The youngest boy, then 7 at the time, sat in a closet talking to a boy that no one else could see.
Oh, this has every trope in it from like haunted house movies. This is nuts.
All in one house.
Yeah.
This spirit of a boy that he was talking to, he said, was describing what it felt like to be killed.
Do we know if there was a murder in the house?
According to the landlord, no. We'll get into that a little bit later. I guess I'll tell you now since you asked, but I will end up repeating it because it's going to come up because I have it in here. The house was built in the 20s. It had one couple that lived there. They died. There was nothing strange about their circumstances. After that, it was rental property, though, and we don't really know what went on there.
Weird.
And I don't remember, I don't know if I noted it in here when it became a rental property, but this young couple bought it in the 20s brand new and lived out their life there. So I'm assuming somewhere between the 70s and 90s. So it'd been a rental property for somewhere between 20 and 40 years probably.
Okay.
But it had one owner after that. It was the same guy that owned it the whole time after that was using it as a rental property. So it only changed hands once.
That makes it even weirder that 200 demons would show up. Like,
maybe it's not the house.
no, that's true. Yeah.
Not the house. So, Campbell said the 7-year-old boy once flew out of the bathroom as if he'd been thrown. And a headboard once smacked into Ammons' daughter, causing a wound that needed stitches.
Oh man, this is how CPS gets involved.
Oh, we're getting there. Remember I told you child services had reports?
Yeah.
They're coming. The 12-year-old would later tell mental health professionals that she sometimes felt as if she were being choked and held down so she couldn't speak or move. She said she heard a voice say she'd never see her family again and wouldn't live another 20 minutes.
Oh man, these poor kids.
Some nights were so bad that the family ended up sleeping in hotels. Finally, in desperation, they went to their family physician, Dr. Jeffrey Onyonkeyo, on April 19th, 2012. Eamon said she told him that what her and her family had been going through, hoping he might understand. Dr. Jeffrey told the Indianapolis Star it was, quote, bizarre. 20 years, and I've never heard anything like that in my life, he said. I was scared myself when I walked into the room. What Ammons and Campbell say happened next was also detailed in a DCS report of a family case manager's interview with medical staff. Chaos erupted, Dennis.
Man, it's like every time they try to fix it or try to it just makes them more angry.
Yep.
That's their house, man.
Yep, that's kind of what it seems like. Something's going on here, and it doesn't want to be messed with.
It wants to do the messing.
So Campbell said Amon's son cursed Dr. Jeffrey in demonic voices, raging at him. Medical staff said that the youngest boy was lifted and thrown into the wall with nobody touching him.
In the
hospital.
Oh my gosh.
In the doctor's office. They're in their general care's office, I believe, at this point.
Oh man, I'd be like, get out. You need a priest.
And this is according to the child services report. So they talked to the medical staff. This is what the medical staff told them.
Right. Oh man.
So after this, the boys, both of them, abruptly passed out and wouldn't come to. Campbell said, or she said she cradled one boy in her arms, grandma held one boy in her arms, mom held the other one.
Okay.
Someone from the doctor's office called 911. Dr. Jeffrey said 7 or 8 police officers and multiple ambulances showed up. Quote, they couldn't figure out exactly what was happening, he recalled. Police and emergency personnel took the boys to Methodist Hospital's campus in Gary. Ammons said hospital personnel laughed at her desire to anoint her sons in olive oil.
Well, that's rude. That's a rude thing to do.
I mean, at this point, you've seen some weird stuff happen. Why are you gonna? Okay.
That would be a weird call to get as a cop. Be like, we need you at the doctor's office. There's a demon attacking people.
I mean, that's basically what it's. Yeah. This kid's flying around the room and nobody's touching him. So Ammons said, quote, I couldn't talk to them, so I talked to God. The boys woke up in the hospital. The older boy, who was then 9, acted rationally, but the youngest screamed and thrashed. Grandma said it took 5 men to hold the youngest one down.
Oh, wow. The 7-year-old?
The 7-year-old. 5 men.
That's not normal.
One on each limb and one laying across the torso, essentially.
Yeah.
This kid weighs all of maybe 50 pounds at this point. Maybe.
That's bonkers, man. I'm getting freaked out, dude. I don't like this.
Yeah, I've been looking into this for a couple days, man. It's been rough. So, meanwhile, someone called DCS and asked the agency to investigate Ammons for possible child abuse and neglect. The caller, who is not named in the DCS report, speculated that Ammons might have a mental illness. The person believed the children were performing for Ammons, and she was encouraging their behavior.
I mean, with all these people involved, it makes sense that somebody would be skeptical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So DCS family case manager Valerie Washington was asked to handle the initial investigation. She gave the following account to police and in her intake officer's report. Hospital personnel examined Ammons and her children and found them to be healthy and free of marks or bruises. A hospital psychiatrist evaluated Ammons and determined she was, quote, of sound mind. Washington interviewed the family and the hospital. While she spoke with Ammons, the 7-year-old boy started growling with his teeth showing. His eyes rolled back in his head.
Can you do that voluntarily?
I mean,
I don't think
roll
it's
your eyes
possible.
back pretty far. Some people can make kind of the pupils disappear.
Oh, man.
So that's debatable. Maybe.
Ah.
A lot
But
of
this
different
is,
people talk about these kids' eyes rolling back in their head during stuff, though.
yeah, that's freaky.
So the boy, which one was this? The younger one? The
Yeah.
7-year-old. His eyes had rolled back in his head. He started growling. He locked his hands around his older brother's throat and refused to let go until adults pried his hands open. Later that evening, Washington and registered nurse Willie Lee Walker brought the two boys into a small exam room for an interview. Campbell joined them. The 7-year-old boy stared into his brother's eyes and began to growl again. "It's time to die," he said in a very deep, unnatural voice. "I will kill you."
Oh, man.
While the youngest boy spoke, the older boy started headbutting Campbell in the stomach. Campbell grabbed her grandson's hands and started praying. What happens next would rattle the witnesses, and to some, it would offer not only evidence but proof of paranormal activity. According to Washington's original DCS report, an account corroborated by Walker, the nurse, the 9-year-old, by Walker, who was the nurse, the 9-year-old had a weird grin, quote, and walked backwards up a wall to the ceiling, then flipped
Whoa.
over Campbell, landing on his feet. He never let go of his grandmother's hand.
Whoa.
Quote, "He walked up the wall, flipped over, and stood there," Walker told the Star. Quote, "There's no way he could have done that."
Like,
Again, this is in the DCS report.
man. So that happened. Was he like, could he have been like, I don't know. I just keep listening.
Well, I think I'm going to get ready to answer your question. Later, police asked Washington, who again is from Child Services,
Right.
whether the boy had run up the wall as though performing an acrobatic trick.
That was my question.
Washington said, no. The boy glided backwards on the floor, wall, and ceiling, according to the police report. Glided
And ceiling.
and ceiling. Like he did a full flip. Like his feet
He
were
didn't
touching
just
all
go
the way to the ceiling, and then when he got up to the top where he's upside down, he then flips and lands on his feet. All somehow, like he never lets go of his grandmother's hand either, so I don't know how that's possible that the hand twists around. But he never lets go of his grandmother's hand.
That's weird.
I mean, it is
Obviously.
possible, I guess, but it seems not normal.
Oh man. And
Again,
by a third party nurse and a child services.
yes, and this is in the hospital.
Man, you'd like think you were risking your career if you put that type of thing in a report.
So you probably feel pretty convicted about it if you are.
Right.
So she told police she was scared when it happened and she ran out of the room. As for Walker, Washington said, he ran out of the room with me. "We didn't know what was going on," Walker told the Star. "That was crazy. I was like, everybody gotta go."
You gotta get out of my office.
Everybody out, everybody out. So according to Washington's report, they told the doctor what happened. The doctor, who did not believe them, asked the boy to walk up the wall again. Walker said he told the doctor he doubted the boy could repeat the feat. Quote, "This kid was not himself when he did that," Walker said. The boy said he didn't remember what happened and couldn't do it again. And that's according to Washington's report as well. So Walker said he thought the boy's behavior had some demonic spirits to it. Walker said he thought the boy's behavior had, quote, "some demonic spirit to it," but also was the result of a mental illness. Later in interviews with hospital staffs, it was revealed that the boy put put first one foot, then the other onto the wall of a small hospital exam room. His grandmother, Rosa Campbell, was holding his hand, or both of his hands. Thus, the laws of physics were not contravened. The boy was obviously supported, braced by rigid arms of Campbell, who no doubt instinctively steadied him and helped him maintain his balance as he progressed, perhaps to the ceiling, and he never let go. He flipped over and landed on his feet in front of his grandmother and sat down in the chair. A few minutes later, he looked up as if he was back to himself. In short, this was a stunt of an agile boy, not in the least proof of the supernatural. Who this hospital staff is, I found this and I wanted to include it because it is supposedly hospital staff, but it also contradicts what hospital staff that were in the room said happened.
Right.
So I think this is, again, you were talking about people worried about their careers. I feel like this is a little bit of that.
Yeah, and I get what they're saying. Like, you could possibly steady, but the fact that it freaked out Doc, yeah, I don't know. I'm
That's what I mean.
guessing.
If you're in a room and you're a child protective service, like you're used to seeing bad situations with kids.
Weird stuff, yeah.
Yeah, like he growled a little and then he flipped over, like he walked up a wall while being supported. That's odd, but that's not going to make you run out of a room out of fear again of a 7-year-old.
Yeah, I think it's the gliding part that probably freaked them out.
That's what I mean. So again, this isn't stepping, and again, we don't know exactly who this hospital staff is that's saying this. This is somebody I feel like that wasn't in the room that wants to discredit what happened.
I wonder if any of this was video recorded.
No, none that
Okay.
at least none that I could find that it was released anywhere. That may have
Okay.
not been released. That may have been something that the hospital wouldn't let go. The mom can release
Well,
records.
yeah, I guess the kids are probably in the video too, and that's probably
Yes.
illegal.
Well, she doesn't want them seen. There's no pictures of them anywhere.
Yeah,
Like I
obviously.
think because that was the deal. That was the deal when she opened up about this to everybody. Is I will tell you everything that happened. I will show you everything, but you don't name my kids. You don't show my kids. You don't try and talk to my kids.
Keep my kids out of it. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, because at this point, I mean, the oldest one would be 20,
And
twenty
it's
twenty.
not their fault that this happened to them, so unless they agreed.
Yeah. And the other
Yeah.
two would still be teenagers. One of them would still be a minor,
Hmm.
even to this day. So that's probably got a lot to do with it. But that was the deal. And I'm assuming just everybody on her, because she did talk to like everybody, like anybody that wanted to cover it. It was very widely covered by like mainstream media. So a police report quoted Washington saying she believed there could be a evidence of evil affecting the family. Ammons said she spent the night at the hospital with her 7-year-old son, while Campbell took Ammons' daughter and older son to a relative's home in Gary. The next day was Ammons' youngest son's 8th birthday. Ammons said DCS officials asked Campbell to bring the older children back to the hospital, presumably to talk more about what had happened. The family celebrated the boy's birthday by singing and eating a miniature cake. Then Ammons said Washington told them the children wouldn't be going home.
Oh no.
DCS took the emergency step of taking custody of the children without a court order. Quote, all of the children were experiencing spiritual and emotional distress, Washington wrote in another DCS form. Ammons told the Star she and her children cried because they didn't want to be separated.
Oh, that's
We'd,
terrible.
we'd already been through so much and fought so hard for our lives, she recalled. It was obvious we were a team and we were beating it. Whatever we were fighting, we made it through together as a team, and they separated us. So at this point, the Reverend Michael Magino was leading Bible study in his living room on the morning of April 20th, 2012, when he received a call from a hospital chaplain. Michael had been the priest at St. Stephen Martyr Parish in Merrillville, for more than 10 years, but had never received a request like this one. The chaplain asked him to perform an exorcism on Amon's 9-year-old son.
And it sounds like the 7-year-old one needs one too.
I kind of felt like the 7-year-old needed it more than
Yeah.
even the 12-year-old with the thing choking it. Like the youngest one's talking to dead boys about dying in the closet. He's
And
trying to
choking
kill
his
his
older brother. Yeah.
Mhm.
12-year-old floating off the bed.
Yeah, well, the youngest one is who flew out of the bathroom too. Everything's been happening to the oldest and the youngest.
That's right. Oh man, the middle child always has the worst.
But for some
That's just
reason, he feels like the 9-year-old needs to be exercised, I guess. So Michael agreed to interview the family after Sunday Mass a few days later. The first step, Michael said, was ruling out natural causes for what Ammons and her family said they were experiencing. He visited Ammons and Campbell in the Carolina Street home April 22nd, 2012. For 2 hours, Ammons and Campbell detailed the phenomena for him. Then Campbell interrupted the interview to point out a flickering bathroom light. The flickering stopped each time Magino walked over to investigate, which he ended up attributing to demonic presence.
hmm
He later said, "It must be scared of me." The interview was interrupted again when Campbell pointed out Venetian blinds in the kitchen swinging even though there was no air current. Magino said he also saw wet footprints throughout the living room.
Oh, it's that same guy. That guy is pacing.
No, there's a priest in the house now. It's
Yeah.
not good. It's not good.
Oh, they're gonna get when this priest leaves. It's not gonna be good. They're gonna be mad.
You think so?
Yeah, they don't like people messing with their
They
plan.
don't. I really don't. Like it seems like as with most things, as we cover this more and more, you and me both personally know from looking into this, the more you like interact with them in any way,
hmm
just brings it on stronger. I don't know what that is that's opening. It's permission, I guess, is really what it is.
Yeah.
It starts with a lot of that, is you're giving them a foothold to interact with you. It's basically welcoming them in.
Yeah.
So Ammons, during all this, complained about having a headache. Magino said she convulsed when he placed a crucifix against her head. So they're explaining this for a few hours, telling him what happened, and she starts feeling bad.
Yeah.
And
Oh, it's
the
attacking her.
priest, his reaction is to then place a crucifix, and it sends her into convulsions while he's touching her with this crucifix.
Ooh.
So after this 4-hour interview, Michael said he was convinced the family was being tormented by demons. He said he also believed there were ghosts in the house. The priest told Ammons that she was possessed. Magino believed that the house had become cursed as a result of a hex placed on her.
Huh. Okay. How do they know that?
This is I
Okay.
this is the priest's conclusions. He actually there's a long report that you can look at. He wrote like you can see the letters that he was writing to his bishop and stuff, like detailing the situation.
Yeah.
And this is for whatever reason that's he thinks this is all really connected to the mother. That the
That
kids
would.
are getting affected, but it's actually the mom who's being tormented by all this.
And they're just messing with the kids to mess with her.
Yes.
Ugh.
Again, and as you look into a lot of stuff like this, like poltergeist stuff, it always seems to involve young kids.
hmm
For whatever reason, that malleable emotional state that they're in and growing, they're more, I'm assuming it's because they're more open to it because they're not as aware of it. They don't have the,
Yeah.
they don't have those guards in place against those things.
Yeah. A lot of paranormal people always say that kids like they don't have that filter. You know what I mean? Like they can see things that we might not necessarily be able to see.
Yeah.
We kind of gain a filter the older we get.
Which
Uh,
I kind of used to kind of laugh at, but the more I look into all this stuff, I'm like, I think there's something to that. Like, and
yeah.
especially in this story, especially, I'm like, yeah, there's something going on where they're really receptive to what's happening in this house, or it may just be that they're basically being used to torment the mom.
Yeah, to mess up her life. I mean, that's the worst thing you can do to a mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mess with their kids, take them away.
So Magino said, I think there was a curse placed on the mother, that she was the focus, possibly by an ex-boyfriend or his wife, and that combined with some tragedy and perhaps occult practices that had taken place in that house before, and that it opened a portal.
Oh, they
So he
live in a
thinks there's
portal.
multiple things going on. He thinks, and again, this house has been a rental for a little while. We don't know of any crazy
Yeah,
deaths or anything, but there could have been some
Ouija
crazy,
boards.
way worse than that going on in
Yeah.
this house. Like there could have been some crazy occult practices going on that had welcomed something. Or again, this priest keeps going back, and you'll see as we keep progressing, keeps talking about the possibility of a portal because there's so many of them there.
It's like a little train station.
Yeah, which would make sense on the there may be 200 of them there. There may just be that many moving through that area for some reason. And
Yeah.
there's a handful of them that are actually connected to whatever's going on. And that's where they get these repetitive ones, like the boy in the closet or the wet footprints guy.
Yeah.
You're gonna find there's at least another character that we're gonna bump into at some point. Okay. So Magino blessed the house before he left, praying, reading from the Bible, and sprinkling holy water in each room. He told Ammons and Campbell to leave because it wasn't safe, so they temporarily moved in with a relative. But less than a week later, the two women were back on Carolina Street to let Washington, the DCS family case manager, check the conditions of the home. Washington had asked a Lake County police officer to come with her. Two officers actually came, one from Gary and one from Hammond's police departments. They'd asked to join out of professional curiosity. So the cops are hearing about this, and they are kind of curious. Like, there's, again, DCS has seen stuff happen, medical professionals have seen stuff happen, and police showed up at the doctor's office. Like, there was those 7 or 8 cops at the
Right.
beginning.
I forgot about that.
So I'm assuming this one of them is probably one of these guys. I didn't find anything that specified that or that named who the 7 or 8 officers were.
Oh, I'm sure when they were trying to do assignments, they were like, "All right, who wants to go to the demon house?" And most
Yeah,
people were like, "No." And then a couple guys were like, "I do."
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Ammons actually refused to go inside the house. She lets Washington and the two police officers in, and she won't go. Campbell agreed to accompany the group because, again, she's got the protection, which is a weird She said that at the beginning, and I thought that was really weird because I'm like, how is this not affecting her? But throughout this story, nothing ever happens to Grandma.
Hmm.
Nothing seems to mess with her. She sees things, but nothing ever seems to, like, again, Ammons had talked about feeling possessed. Stuff
Yeah.
happened to the kids. Grandma never has anything happen.
So she is protected in some way.
Yes.
Yeah.
In some way, she's not, again, with the priest thinking there might be some sort of occult practice. I kind of think that maybe Latoya at some point had played with some witchcraft, even though they seem to be Catholic Christian. They're praying and stuff. They're messing with clairvoyance and stuff. They're playing with the spiritual realm.
Yeah, I thought it was weird that in the beginning they called the preacher and they called like a psychic, basically.
Well, it's because I think I didn't find anything that was like there was a little bit about that maybe she was kind of into this stuff before, but I think a lot of it as the first churches she approached all turned her down, like didn't
That's
want to help
true.
her.
Yeah,
So
she's just
eventually,
desperate.
yeah, who's somebody who will work with spirits? Her initial reaction was to go to the church, though.
That's true. I forgot about that.
So I'm not justifying it in any way. I'm just saying I don't know how much of this was going on, but there seems to be, and again with the preacher thinking that something is connected to her and thinking that it might be a hex on her. I just kind of wonder if there had been some stuff going on before all this.
I thought it was interesting that he mentioned an ex-boyfriend and his wife. I wonder if she messed around with like a married dude.
Maybe. Well, it was her ex-husband, I think.
Oh, and his wife. Okay.
Ex-husband and his new wife.
Okay. She must have mentioned something about him.
Yeah, and I couldn't
being
find anything
involved.
about that. I don't know how he came to that. And he doesn't really express it anywhere in anything I found that he wrote about it. It was just kind of, this was his thought by whatever had happened during that 4-hour interview. But anyway, okay. So the main floor of the house had 3 bedrooms, a living room, 1 bathroom, hardwood floors, and a small open style kitchen. A door in the kitchen led to a basement with concrete floors. Directly under the stairs was a dirt floor. The concrete around it was jagged, as though it had been broken. The makeshift altar Ammon had created was still in place, along with the rings of salt that had been poured against the basement walls to dissuade the demons, according to a Hammond Police Department report. Campbell told officers that demons seemed to emanate from beneath the stairs.
Oh, it's like that little patch of ground or something.
Again, back to the possible portal
Yeah.
and the constant walking up the stairs at night.
I'd be wondering if there wasn't a body hidden under there.
I would be too. I think everybody is.
Yeah.
So Austin, the Gary police captain, was one of those officers. Okay. So, sorry. Campbell told the officers that demons. Oh, yeah. So, okay. So, thinking they're coming from underneath the stairs, Austin, the Gary police captain, from the beginning, was one of these officers who had showed up. He said he changed his mind after visiting the Carolina Street. So, he'd had his doubts about it. But after going, he's come around. During the interview with Campbell, one of the officers' audio recorders malfunctioned, according to Austin, and Hammond police records. The power light flashed to indicate the batteries were dying, even though the officer had placed fresh batteries in the recorder earlier that day.
Oh man, that's such a thing you always see happen with like ghost investigations and stuff.
Yes, I thought that. Well, it doesn't sound like much because you can kind of scoff at that on its own. But in this whole connection with everything else that's been going on in this house, all these people that have seen it, like you've now turned people that would normally be skeptical about these things into believers.
Right.
Something happened. You've got police that are curious about it. You've got doctors that are scared of it.
State officials.
Yes. So another officer recorded audio, and when he played it back later, they heard an unknown voice whisper, "Hey."
Oh, an EVP and a police. Oh, that's crazy.
And I forgot to put it in here. There was another. They said something else too. It was like, "You out of here." It wasn't a complete sentence.
Oh man, I just think it's weird that we can capture that stuff with electronic things. Like, how does that like manipulate it? Like, I've always wondered, like, what would it be like to like be a ghost? Like, are they blind or like are they floating? Like, I don't know. It's just weird.
Well, they're obviously walking around to some extent.
Like, how do they decide like when they can affect something? You know what I mean? Like,
well, we're not talking about ghosts here. We're talking about demons.
Right. That's true.
You keep calling them ghosts. These aren't ghosts.
Okay, yeah. Well, these are demons.
Nothing about this really seems like ghosts. These are demons. This is something demonic.
Demon happening. Train station, Portalville.
Yes.
Okay.
And I believe that pretty strongly, and you'll find out just based on the way they're reacting to things that normally happen in exorcisms. The crucifix.
Oh, yeah, no, I think they're demons. I know, I'm just kind of using it interchangeably because normally when you hear like EVP stuff, they associate it with like ghost hunters and stuff like that. You know, yeah, so.
And yeah, I get what you're saying. But yeah, no, nobody at this point is thinking this is. Well, I mean, I guess there is an element of ghost because there was a little boy in the closet.
That could be a demon playing tricks. That's the thing. We don't know. Yeah.
And that's the thing that I go to when I hear about a lot of this is like, well, they think it's because I'm like, no, I think that's a demon. Like, if I'm honestly stating my opinion on it, that's what that is.
And we know a kid wasn't killed in the house, at least so far it sounds like.
I can tell you the whole way through, there's no record of a kid ever dying in that house. So that leads me to believe demon again.
Yeah.
But again, I get why that leads you to say things like ghost. But it's probably a demon. And again, the clairvoyants are thinking of the priest thinks that it's weird that the priest and the clairvoyants both came to the same conclusion, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which means there's definitely some interaction that goes on. There's I think, something going on where those people can interact with things.
Well, like the police think it. Everybody thinks it. Yeah. Yeah, you're right about the psychics now, right?
So the officer also took photos of the house. In one of the photos of the basement stairs, there was a cloudy white image in the upper right-hand corner. When an officer enlarged the photo, that cloud appeared to resemble a face, Lake County police records state. The enlargement also revealed a second green image that police say looked like a female figure.
Oh man. I want to.
Which I couldn't, I found the reports, I couldn't find these photos. And I didn't dig super, super hard. Maybe I'll look some more before we post all this so I can bring them up as we go along. But this is just the officers describing them or whatever. So Austin said photos he snapped with his iPhone also seemed to have strange silhouettes in them. The radio in his police issued Ford malfunctioned on the way home as well. Later, Austin said the garage at his Gary home refused to open, even though the power was on everywhere else.
Okay. I'd be so upset at myself for going to that house at that point. I'd be like, did I bring this home?
Austin also said the driver's seat of his personal 2005 Infiniti also began moving backwards and forwards on its own.
No.
He got into the garage, he gets into his car, and the seats just whoop, whoop, whoop.
No. One of them followed him.
One of them followed him, I think. He said he had the car checked at a dealership and that the mechanic told him the motor on the driver's seat was broken, which the mechanic said could have caused a distraction leading to an accident.
That motor might be broken, but that's because a demon got in there. What are the odds? Have you ever seen anything like that? You worked on cars.
No, the worst I've ever had with a power seat is I've had a car that if you put it all the way back, it would like get to the end of its teeth in the thing and it wouldn't want to come back forward. There was never anything it doing it on its own. I've had buttons get stuck, but it's only one direction. That button would have to push both ways to make that happen.
Right, something's moving that button, or at least manipulating
the odds of an electrical wiring issue, like wires coming apart and connecting, are sitting there tapping each other to make that happen. Extremely unlikely, especially for a car that's been parked.
He messed around and got a demon.
Nobody's in it while this is happening. I assume he's going to get in it or he's walking by it in his garage while this is happening. So nobody's been in it. Also, if it would have been happening for a long time, it would have killed the battery. It would have eventually burnt up the motor probably. Like,
it was saying, "Hey, I'm here."
You could try and explain it away with coincidence as the dealership tries to do. I mean, what else are they going to do? They're not going to be like, yeah, it seems like a demon-related problem. Luckily, that is covered under your warranty. So,
hello, Geico.
So, Austin said he found himself starting to believe Ammons' claims of paranormal activity, but the mental health professionals evaluating Ammons and her children remained skeptical. In April 2012, again, we're still in April. This is all the same month.
Oh my gosh.
4 months after they moved in, 5 months after they moved in. DCS petitioned Lake Juvenile Court for temporary wardship of the 3 children, and the request was granted. DCS found that Ammons neglected her children's education by not having them in school regularly. The agency made the same finding in 2009, its records show.
That's a weird. I'd be sending them to school every day, like, get out of here. Maybe she just wanted to be with them all the time because stuff was so crazy.
Well, yes, probably partially. But Ammons told Washington there were times she could not send the kids to school because the spirits would make them sick or they would be up all night without sleep.
Yeah, she's just taking care of her kids. Yeah.
But I mean, to an onlooker, like I'm not defending the child's. At this point, I don't know. I feel like Washington's seen enough that I mean, I guess what else is she going to do? Her job is to protect children.
Yeah, her job is to find any issue and take care of it. Yeah.
Yeah, if the answer to this is get them out of this house, she's the type of cookie cutter that's going to make that decision. Because that's her mold, is get children away from bad situations, find normal homes for them. Yeah. So I get it. She's doing her job. DCS temporarily placed her daughter and older son at St. Joseph's Carmelite home in East Chicago. Ammons' youngest son was sent to Christian Haven in Wheatfield for a psychiatric evaluation, which is who I think should have been getting most of the attention at this point.
I was going to say, finally.
If anybody's going to be exercised, that's the mom and the youngest, in my opinion.
I bet there was so much more stuff happening than what's in this story.
There must have been more happening with the 9-year-old boy that the priest thought he was the one that needed exercise.
Yeah.
So clinical psychologist Stacy Wright, who evaluated Amon's youngest son, said the boy tended to act possessed when he was challenged, redirected, or asked questions he didn't want to answer. In her evaluation, Wright wrote that he seemed coherent and logical except when he talked about demons. It was then that the 8-year-old boy's stories became bizarre, fragmented, and illogical, Wright said. His stories changed each time he told them to. He also changed the subject, quizzing Wright on math problems and asking her about outer space. Can you die if you go to space? He'd ask. How do you get to space? Do you have to wear a helmet and a suit? Wright believed the 8-year-old boy did not suffer from a true psychotic disorder. She said, this appears to be an unfortunate and sad case of a child who has been induced into a delusional system perpetuated by his mother and potentially reinforced by other relatives, she wrote in a psychological journal or a psychological evaluation, sorry.
Well, though, but if you were a kid and you were around weird stuff, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure that psychological stuff could also be playing a role in some of this, because if your home's full of demons,
Effect.
right? Exactly. Yeah, you can just be, oh well, it's just PTSD or whatever. It's like, yeah, because of all the demons.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. Like you're trying to discredit it, but I'm saying you're right. But the cause is
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
living with a bunch of demons,
Right. That's what
and
I'm saying.
he's
Yeah.
not taking it well.
He's not. Yeah. He's not taking the demon thing well.
No. So, clinical psychologist Joel Swartz, who evaluated Amon's daughter and older son, came to a similar conclusion. Quote, there also appears to be a need to assess the extent to which Amon's daughter may have been unduly influenced by her mother's concerns that the family was exposed to paranormal experiences, Swartz wrote. So Amon's daughter told Swartz that she saw shadowy figures in the Carolina Street home. She also said she twice went into she also said twice she went into trances. Amon's older son told Swartz that, quote, doors would slam and stuff would start moving around.
Mm-hmm.
How you get that there?
I think you're right. I think this is just like these are professionals who are trained to look at everything
They're putting
and
it in their
explain
box.
it through one box and do one thing. Yeah.
And that's why I'm kind of like, as I went through this, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much the conclusion I came to. It's like, oh, each one of these people is just taking this like a normal thing that they would do every day, and it's just got to fit into one of the normal
Right.
diagnoses. So I don't have to write any kind of a new study on some weird stuff. Or I don't have to be the doctor that's saying that demons are possessing children and stuff.
Yeah, or like argue
You
with
go
my
back to the
boss.
professional thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Because yeah, arguing with your boss, happening to take that to your boss, like, so I think this kid's having some PTSD from demons. What'd you say? I, demon possessions, I think, has made this kid crazy. Yeah, we're gonna need a review on your work here, I think.
Also, it kind of contradicts itself a little bit because they say, "Oh, the kids are normal unless the demons are involved," but then like they're telling them stories flat out about stuff moving around, doors slamming, and all this stuff. So
And
it,
imagine you bring up the demons and it makes the kids act erratic. It's all
yeah, they're probably scarred.
yeah. I think PTSD is a real thing, and it's definitely real here, I think.
Hmm.
Like these kids have seen some stuff in a few months. So Ammons also was examined several times by psychologists who said she was, quote, guarded, but did not seem to be experiencing symptoms of psychosis or thought disorder. One psychologist recommended Ammons be assessed to determine whether her religiosity may be masking underlying delusional ideations or perceptual disturbances. So Ammons and all three kids continued to insist they were possessed by demons. So DCS set goals for the family. One of them stipulated that the children not discuss demons and being possessed, and to take responsibility for their actions. They also needed to participate in therapy to address past behavior.
You need to apologize for gliding up that wall backwards,
I
Timmy.
mean, getting thrown out of the bathroom, like
Yeah, you need to address your behavior.
you need to really address your levitation, young lady,
Yeah.
and
You
what
are
you did.
responsible for your own actions.
That's right. The levitating you did, that's on you. And you're gonna need to figure out how to process that.
Don't tell me this demon stuff.
Yeah, and don't talk about demons when you talk about why you were levitating.
Remember this goals.
Yeah. So while DCS officials credited Ammons for sharing a close bond with her children, the agency also said she needed to use alternate forms of discipline not directly related to religion and demon possession. According to DCS case plan, appropriate discipline included encouragement, rules, and withholding privileges. She could work on those goals during supervised visits with the children.
They act like she was like tying her kids down and like putting a cross in their face because they like broke a lamp.
Yep.
You know what I mean? They act like
It
this.
doesn't really make sense, does it?
No, you're right. They're completely putting it in their box and just refusing to, yeah, acknowledge the
This
actual
is what
story.
we do when there's a problem as we go through these steps. Your children were removed, you get visitations.
Yep.
This is
Here's
how
a
you become a
worksheet.
more structured parent. Follow this checklist. Please sign this. Thank you. So Ammons also had to find a job and appropriate housing due to the paranormal activity.
So
And I don't,
as part of the plan, they're like, oh, by the way, get out of the haunted house.
yeah, but again, don't talk about the demons.
Yeah.
So while Ammons worked on meeting those objectives, police and DCS officials continued to investigate the strange happenings in the house.
It's like everyone's acknowledging it, but they're not. It's like we all know what's going on here, but we're not going to say it. We're
No,
just, yeah.
because we're all professionals and this is going to go in reports, and we don't want to be the professionals that say there's a ghost here or a demon's here or anything supernatural going on that we can't explain with whatever our box is, basically. Whatever thing is that we do, we got to figure out how to fit this story into that.
Yeah.
So the group was a bit larger this time as they went back to investigate more. Campbell, Ammons, Police Chief Austin, and two other police officers from the initial visit went back to the Carolina Street home on the afternoon of May 10th, 2012. So the police officers visited after work hours. So they got off their shift and then came by this house.
This is literally just like their personal interest.
Yes, it's kind of
Yeah.
become that. But again, you have credible witnesses here. So they were joined by Magino, two Lake County officers with a police dog, and DCS family case manager Samantha Illick. Illick, who was there in an official capacity, told the Star she had volunteered to go in Washington's place because Washington did not want to go back to the house.
That would be me. I'd be like, keep me out of this. Keep me out of this case.
So a county officer took his police dog around the home, but the dog didn't show interest in any particular area, and that's according to the Lake County police records. Everyone then headed to the basement. Illick touched some strange liquid she saw dripping in the basement and said it felt slippery, yet sticky between her fingers. Magino told police he wanted to check the dirt under the stairs for a pentagram or personal objects that might have been cursed. He said a pentagram might indicate a demonic presence and possible portal to hell. And again, that's in the police reports. He also wanted to know if someone had died in the house and was buried under the stairs. It could explain paranormal activity, Magino added. One of the police officers dug a 4-foot by 3-foot hole beneath the stairs, unearthing a pink press-on nail, a white pair of panties, a political shirt pen, which I couldn't find out what the pen was, a lid for a small cooking pan, socks with the bottoms cut off below the ankles, candy wrappers, and a heavy metal object that looked like a weight for a drapery cord, police records state.
That's a weird set of things to be under the ground.
Well, do you want to let's go back through some of the things that have happened in this house.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got the camera that saw a womanly figure moving through,
Right. We have
which
a white pair
again,
of panties.
white pair of panties. The socks seem weird. The drapery cord from the blinds moving upstairs. That would have been one of those weights that would have been holding those cords down that they say was like moving moving with the blinds and stuff.
Oh, and it's like buried. Oh, that's really weird,
That's
man.
buried down there. I don't know.
The
Nobody
lid
comes out
for a
and said,
small cooking pan.
but I mean, like we found some sort of personal effects from people.
Yeah, which is a weird thing to have in the ground.
Candy wrappers. There's a kid in the house.
Uh-huh.
I'm
Huh.
just,
Yeah, no, I got you.
I don't know. The panties kind of stuck with me, and the socks with the bottoms cut off below the ankles was really weird. So you've just got the tube part,
Well, it
like the
just
part that
weirds
your
me
foot would
out.
go in is gone.
Right, right. It just weirds me out that anything's below the ground at all. Like,
Somebody
especially
buried that there at some
somebody
point
buried a random assortment of things. Yeah.
in the last 90 years. At some point, somebody buried that there.
Okay. Uh,
So finding nothing else, the officers replaced the dirt and raked over it. Maggino blessed some salts, which he said is a barrier to evil, and spread it under the stairs and throughout the basement. Illich said she was later standing in the living room. Again, this is the DCS lady. She was with the rest of the group when her left pinky finger started to tingle and whiten. She complained it felt broken. Less than 10 minutes later, she was having a panic attack. She couldn't breathe, so she walked outside to wait for the group. When the priest started questioning Ammons inside the house, so I guess they got her to come inside the house. Or she came in this time, I guess.
yeah, she came this
She
time.
came in this time. She complained of a headache and shoulder pain, according to police record, and she joined Illich outside. Austin said he left the house at nightfall. Now, Captain Austin, who has been shot at and has investigated murders, rapes, and armed robberies during his more than 3 decades on the force, said there was no way he was staying in that house past dark.
Yeah. I bet you could feel the presence. You know what I mean? Like stuff that you can't really put in a report, but you know that feeling you're being watched. Yep. Or, yeah.
People talk about that a lot with this. Not just in this, but I mean just in general. You hear like that's a common thing, like to feel things before things start happening.
Mm-hmm.
So the other officers, though, they stayed and continued to walk through the house as it got dark. On the main floor, they noticed an oil-like substance dripping from the Venetian blinds in a bedroom, but couldn't figure out where it was coming from.
Okay.
Remember, blinds were moving earlier for no reason.
Yeah, and that lady in the basement felt the
slippery,
oil,
the sticky,
yeah.
slippery, yeah. So now there's oil all over these blinds. Again, there's been a bunch of police officers here. Even though Ammons and Campbell were in the house, there's a bunch of official people there with them. They're not alone at any point.
Yeah.
So this is just there. Nobody's been in the house either. Like Ammons, grandma, everybody's staying other places. The kids aren't there. Nobody's been in this house.
Huh.
They've walked around this house. A dog's walked around this house. Nobody noticed this up till this point, which you would think in the light during the day, it would have been more noticeable that there was oil on something.
Right.
So they noticed this. To make sure, though, that Campbell or Ammons hadn't somehow poured oil on the blinds, 2 of the officers used paper towels to clean it off. The officers sealed off the room for 25 minutes and stood nearby so no one could walk in. But when they went back in, Dennis, the oil had reappeared.
Ooh, what a weird thing for a demon to do, just like oiling up the place.
Well, and that hadn't happened until Mom had started putting oil on the kids and putting oil in the house.
It's like making fun of her or something.
I don't know. Remember, well, they put it on the windows and the doors and the kids.
Oh,
This
right.
is now happening on the windows, basically. It's happening on the blinds. It's almost like it's pushing it off the windows or something.
Oh, I
I don't
see.
know,
Who knows? Yeah.
but it is weird that there's something else responding to this oil on the windows. Whether it's good or bad, I don't know. Because it was
Hmm.
put on there as a blessing and a seal. So is that something, is that like an angel or something renewing this?
Maybe.
Or you're right, is it, or it could be, is it a demon mocking what's happening? Either way,
Oil on my blinds.
Magino told police the liquid was a manifestation of a paranormal or demonic presence. So the preacher doesn't think it's good. Preacher, priest.
Yeah.
He wrote a report detailing his finding, which was a very, we almost read his report. It was so interesting to read. But there was so much other stuff before he came in that I was like, well, we got to talk about that too. But he wrote this report detailing his findings and asked Bishop Dale Melchek permission to perform an exorcism on Ammons. So now he wants to exorcise mom.
Hmm.
So Magino said Melchek had never authorized an exorcism in 21 years as bishop of the Diocese of Gary. Debbie Bozak, director of communications for the diocese, said she cannot comment on whether Dale has ever approved an exorcism for confidentiality reasons. In general, she said, such an action would require a bishop's approval. Now, Bishop Dale initially denied Michael's request to do a church-sanctioned exorcism, Magino had said. The bishop told Magino to contact other priests who have performed exorcisms. So he's like, look, I'm not going to tell you you can do that, but you could ask for some tips from other priests that have maybe done this, and maybe we could do something unofficially.
Huh.
Which we get into a weird part about, like, apparently it's got to be like a sanctions exorcism or it's not as strong.
Yeah. That makes sense, I guess.
Like, you got to get the church's blessing for it to like be full strength.
I guess that makes sense if he has more authority or
Yeah.
whatever. Um, that's an interesting thing to tell him to like go around the main system. Then you know what I mean? Like
Yeah, he's
go
like,
talk.
yeah, it's kind of like I think there's a problem, but for whatever reason, he doesn't want to put it on record with the church
Huh? That's
because they
interesting.
document all that stuff.
Yeah, but that's just part of what they do. He must have
Yeah,
a personal thing, or I don't.
but again, he's never done it before. He's been bishop for like 21 years.
Yeah, he's probably like I don't know.
Yeah, it maybe that he doesn't want. I don't know. He just seems like again, like what was happening with the family early on. The churches or whatever in this area don't want to get involved in this.
Oh, Gary, Indiana, step up
Apparently,
your game.
yeah.
That's how you end up with the demon portal.
Apparently, it's because they're lax on fighting demons there. I think
I
that's
know, that's
what
what
happened.
I'm thinking. I'm like, no wonder there's so many demons.
Yeah,
You
it's
can't get
no,
any church to take your call.
yeah. I think that's it. You know what? I think that's exactly what's happening. Is yeah, demons like Indiana because they're pretty passive on fighting them there, I guess.
I'm not going to Gary, Indiana.
Indiana is like a demon like vacation resort essentially.
Scary Gary, Indiana.
uh, so Magino said he needed other priests to give him the ritual for a minor exorcism, which does not require church approval. The priest he consulted told him to look it up on the internet.
God, everybody's like really laugh. I feel bad for this lady. Like she,
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the mom?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, she's had so many like people see what's going on, and everybody still like can't get anybody else to get on board, even within the church, which I found weirdest of all. Like, you've got a priest that's now interviewed all these people that have seen all this stuff. He's kind of said he's felt some stuff and seen some stuff there. He said the lights and stuff were a demonic thing. Like, why is everybody the church was the one that I was like, I don't know what box you're trying to put this in. Everybody else made
I know.
sensible responses.
This should be your box, the
This
demon
is your
box.
thing. So I found that very odd through this whole thing that yeah, churches didn't want to deal with it. And apparently it's just yeah, nobody ever deals with it there. And she hadn't tried to farm it outside the state, I guess.
Hmm.
So he said he did an intense blessing on the Carolina Street home to expel bad spirits. That same day, Magino performed a minor exorcism on Ammons herself. The ritual consisted of prayers, statements, and appeals to cast out demons. Two police officers and Illich, the DCS family case manager, attended the ritual. Illich said she left believing that something was going on, although she wouldn't go as far as saying it was demonic. She said she got chills during the nearly 2 hour ritual, though.
So the agency that's telling them not to talk about demons is showing up to this exorcism just to like check it out.
Yeah.
Hmm.
The police are coming. Everybody wants to see what's happening. Like, even though we're saying there's something weird going on here with the kids or the mom's abusive, I think it's that they're looking for proof, really. Like, is she abusive and somehow crazy, or is there really something happening here that's scaring this family to death?
Yeah.
And also, I'm sure curiosity is kind of involved for a lot
I'm
of
sure
these.
some of these cops are just like, this is
Oh, the police
wild.
officers, actually. Um, she said, "We felt like someone was in the room. We felt like someone was in the room with you. Someone breathing down your neck."
Oh man, I know that feeling.
Me too. Illich said she had a string of medical problems after visiting the home as well. So again, remember, bad things happened to the police captain after he left. A week after she had visited the house for the last time, Illich said she got a third-degree burns from a motorcycle. Within 30 days, she had also broke 3 ribs
Oh my
jet
gosh.
skiing, broke a hand when she hit a table, then broke an ankle running in flip-flops.
It sounds like she had a very drunken week at the
I
beach.
mean, that one I was like, well, there's some time in between. Also, you might just be clumsy. You might just be accident prone.
Although, judging by what happened to that cop when he went home and his car started acting up, like maybe
Yep.
something was following her around,
I
hurting her.
kind of think so too. And she's way more involved because she's the case manager. Like, she's deciding what's happening to the kids and are they going to be with the mom? It's kind of, I don't know. So she said, quote, "I had friends who wouldn't talk to me because they believed that something had attached itself to me." And her joking response to this was, "I'm already evil. They try to find something that's not evil and corrupted. They wouldn't waste their time on me," which is a really weird thing for a children's case manager to.
Yeah, I'm too evil to be possessed.
I'm too evil to be possessed. Also, I'm going to make sure your kids are taken care of.
Illick's got some real mixed. When it comes to her, she's like, "Oh, this weird stuff's happening to me," but then she's like telling them not to talk about it. Like,
Yep.
I don't like Illick.
She's.
I don't know. I don't judge. She doesn't come across very sympathetic in the story.
No, and she's there when a lot of stuff's happening with the kids not present and stuff. And I'm like, how do you, like, she's kind of admitting it at this point. Like, there's something going on here, but I'm not, she won't give it full credit, I think,
Yeah.
is really what it is. So after the minor ritual, Magino told Ammons to look up the names of demons that were tormenting her, which
Okay.
I don't know how she was going to recognize them. But anyway, I couldn't find anything on like what her research process was during all this.
Yeah, I've heard that. Like,
But maybe if you just look through them, maybe they present themselves as you come across their name. I
or
don't.
maybe they have like different personalities. Like this one does
Yeah.
watery footsteps or something. I don't know.
I mean, there must be something to that. I didn't dig into that too far. That might be something fun to pry into on a later thing at some point. Like demon trading, like Pokemon cards, but with demons.
Yeah.
Um, he said that each demon has a name and a personality, which I never really thought about that until I went through this. I'm like, I never really thought of them each kind of being individuals. Like,
It
you just
makes
think of them as
sense.
being just one evil entity that are all like the same and
Like
they just
little
run around doing
goblins.
evil. But like, they're gonna have different personalities to them. They're gonna want to torment in different ways. Like, that's why you end
Yeah.
up with all these different iterations, I think, where some like to mess with kids and so they masquerade as children that have been killed and stuff like that.
Right. Or some are similar.
Yeah. So a name has power, the priest added, and he explained to use those names to fight the demons during the exorcism, which I didn't realize you were supposed to try and call them out by name.
I think that makes sense if you're giving them orders.
I mean, it does, but also, I guess if you're really dealing with them, you're going to be able to confirm that's their name.
Right.
I was gonna say, how do you know which name to yell? But I'm assuming if you start going through demons, a list of demons' names, based on what I've seen, I mean, obviously we haven't covered it on the show, but just in personal experience with like looking into stuff like this, they're almost arrogant in a way to where they're gonna want to be acknowledged when you're trying to do it.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you go back to even like the Bible, given it's apostles and stuff dealing with them, like they announce their names when they're asked. I am Legion.
Right. Hello.
Yeah,
I'm Steve.
I'm a bunch of demons in this dude.
This is
So
a
it is
bunch of them.
possible for them to all be compressed in this house. I mean, just if
Right. That's true. Yeah.
you're
And it's
getting biblical with this, like obviously there is no possible. I guess there might not be a limit to how many demons could actually inhabit a person.
I guess if they're not physical, they kind of exist on a different plane. So
Yeah, where yeah,
I like your image though, of just all the demons standing around. You're just like walking through them.
yeah. I mean, that is after I read this, I'm like, well, that's how I'm gonna think about any kind of like a haunting thing from now on. Is just there's like a waiting room of demons, all dressed up as
Like
different
checking their
things.
watches. Yeah.
When's my person gonna be here? What am I doing today?
I guess they don't really take up space.
I mean, not really. Well, this, I don't know. And then I got to wondering, like, is this like a stop? Like they just come by this house like every once in a while? Like this is on their route?
Yeah, or maybe there's something about this family that is like like maybe it's harder or easier to mess with certain people. And they're like, "Hey, we found one that's really easy." And everyone's like, "Oh, I want to do with that."
That's very possible. There's something about they're feeding off of some sort of energy, or who knows.
Yeah.
So Eamon said she and a friend looked up the demons' names online by searching for demons that represented the problems the family had been having. The computer kept shutting down, though. She
Oh.
said she felt sick and lightheaded while she was doing it. But she said they found names that fit. One such name was Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies. Eamon said that she also found names of demons that torture and hurt kids, which
Hmm.
she felt explained what happened in the Carolina Street house. Eamon said other high ranking demons also were assigned to her, including lieutenants and sergeants. Which, as I thought about that, I'm like, who is sitting around categorizing demons? Like,
People do it.
well, I
I
mean,
don't
but
know how.
the thing is either okay, so there's two ways you're coming up with that. Either you're making it up, or you are somehow interacting with demons. Or I guess angels could be giving you the information as well.
Yeah, it could be that. Or think about it. People have done like thousands of exorcisms. They might have cataloged
You know what?
who they've met.
That's true because each time there's an exorcism, just in a little bit we've talked about them, like they will name themselves, and
Yeah.
then you're going to be able to see it does this to a person. Yeah, I guess you're right. It probably is more from that aspect. I just like to think of like a witch or something in like the, early like ADs. It's just like got a big, cauldron and she's just like calling up spirits and asking them and then just writing them down.
Yeah,
Just
roll
doing like
call.
just little profile synopsises for each demon.
Oh man. Yeah, whatever's going on here though, it had to be authorized by a pretty powerful demon to get this many. Yeah, that's crazy. I like that witch link. All right, next.
The Encyclopedia of Demons.
I think that exists.
It probably does. So after the minor rite, Michael Magino said Bishop Melchek gave him permission to exorcise Ammons. The ritual is the same as the minor exorcism, but more powerful because it has the backing of the Catholic Church.
Okay, so it's the same thing though.
Yeah, Magino ultimately performed three major exorcisms on Ammons, two in English and the last one in Latin, in June of 2012 at his Merrillville church. During each, Magino said he praised God and condemned the devil. He pressed a crucifix against Ammon's head as he spoke. I cast you out, unclean spirit, along with every satanic power of the enemy, every specter from hell, and all your fell companions in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Magino said his voice continued to get louder and more forceful until the demon weakened. He said he could tell how strong the demon was by how much Ammons convulsed. Two police officers who had kept in touch with Michael since the home investigation stood nearby in case Ammons needed restrained. So
These
there's two
guys are
police.
just hanging out. Yeah.
Ammons said she prayed with Magino until it became too painful. She said she felt as if something was inside her that was trying to hold on and inflict pain at the same time. She said it was different from a natural pain, but felt as intense as giving birth. She said, I was hurting all over from the inside out. And she remembers thinking, I'm trying to do my best and be strong.
Hmm.
Eventually, Magino said Ammons fell asleep. She said that was the demon's way of lessening the ritual's effect. In between the second and third exorcism, Magino said he went on a retreat. A woman who assisted Magino with some of his exorcisms helped set up a backup plan in case Ammons had a problem while he was gone. The woman wrote a long demon name. Magino said he can't remember which one it was on a piece of paper and tucked it in an envelope, then surrounded it with blessed salt. If Ammons had a problem, the woman would burn the envelope.
Hmm.
By this time, Ammons and her mother had moved to Indianapolis, but they drove back for the exorcisms and court hearings as her children were still in child services care.
Well, at least they got out of that house.
Yes. And I don't know, I should have looked into what the envelope thing was more, like why that was doing it.
I
I
never heard
don't,
of that.
I haven't either, and I should have done more due diligence. There's just so much in this story that I kept on trying not to veer off in other directions about some of
Yeah.
that stuff.
It's a good one, though.
So Magino said he blessed the family's new home to prevent more problems. But Ammons called while Magino was on his retreat, complaining of bad dreams. So the woman burned the envelope. She saved the ashes to burn later in a church bonfire. After that, Ammons said her nightmares ended. On June 7th, just prior to the second exorcism, Magino claims to have been attacked by the demons. Spending the afternoon riding his bicycle, Magino had an unusual number of near accidents, which culminated with him being thrown from his bike into the grass. According to Magino, I looked and saw that the seat of my bike was completely twisted, but it made no sense because it was absolutely tight, and I had to really pound it to straighten it out. I was
Oh,
in
man.
no doubt. I was in no doubt I had been attacked. I was being warned.
Yeah. Man, they keep going after people during recreational activities like bike riding, jet skiing.
Yep. Just when you least expect it, I think is what it is. They're
Yeah.
following these individuals around, and then they're
Or
doing stuff.
a time when the tiniest push can cause the most damage.
Yep. Well, it actually twisted the seat.
Oh, God, it
That's what I'm
messes with
saying. Like that's
seats.
what he's talking about. Like the seat was tight. Like he had to jam it to
Oh,
get.
I see what you're
Like
saying.
the
Yeah.
seat was turned,
Oh.
so it had thrown him. Like that's kind of why he got thrown. It's like the base that he's sitting on got twisted and he toppled off.
Whew.
Crazy, right?
That's crazy. Yeah.
So in the final exorcism at the end of June 2012, Magino said he prayed and berated the demons in Latin rather than in English. Police officers did not attend this one, though. So Magino said his brother stood guard. Magino said Ammons convulsed while he condemned the demons, but did not convulse during praying.
Hmm.
When she fell asleep, he said words of thanksgiving. It would be the last time Ammons saw Magino. She and her mother drove back to Indianapolis, where they say they now live without fear.
Huh.
Ammons' old home on Carolina Street became an object of local curiosity. So much so, the owner and landlord, Charles Reed, called the Gary Police Department to ask officers to stop driving by the house because it was scaring his new tenants.
Cops are just like super interested in this stuff up there or down there.
It's up there.
You're right though. If the new tenants didn't, well, I guess they did a ritual in the house. Yeah.
Yeah.
This
We
sounds like it
said,
was just a perfect confluence of like the people and the place and the time. You know what I mean? Like,
I've gone very back and forth on what I think actually happened because it doesn't seem like whatever these demons are weren't attached to the house itself.
Yeah.
And I don't know that the mom would not be in the room when things happened at the hospital and stuff. It did interact with the kids. It seems to have gone after people after they left the house and it interacted with the house. So I lean towards the portal idea that this is some sort of an intersection for some reason
Hmm.
in between realms or however, I don't know if that is really like a gateway to hell. Like that would almost be, maybe we'll cover that at some point, like the theories behind how all that works.
Yeah,
Like
that'd be
don't know
interesting.
enough. Because I hear priests talk about that as being like specific points where like there's traffic basically. And
Yeah.
humans can set them up and therefore make them more plentiful and make it easier for them to move about.
I don't like it.
I'm also curious at what speed demons actually move about too. Like, do they walk around like normal speed? Do they have to
That's a good
travel?
question.
Like,
Yeah,
do
do they
they
have to like
travel
walk?
everywhere just by like walking essentially? Like
They
they don't
use
have
UFOs,
vehicles.
Patrick.
That's also possible too. That's a tie-in theory. So, so back to Reed, the homeowner who'd been renting it. He said there were no problems in the home before or after Ammons and her family had lived there. He said, I thought I'd heard it all. He's been a landlord for 33 years. This was a new one to me. My belief system has a hard time jumping over that bridge. When told of the Catholic Church's involvement, though, in the situation, Reed said that made him less skeptical.
Yeah.
So Ammons regained custody of her three children in November of 2012.
Oh, that's
After
an intense summer, man.
6 months, they'd been separated. The children said they felt safe after they left the house on Carolina Street. The three left their demonic voices and complaints behind them. On February 6, 2014, it was announced that Magino had signed a movie deal with Evergreen Media Holdings and executive chairman Tony DeRosa Grund, the producer of The Conjuring. Magino has announced that he will be working with Ghost Adventures star Zach Baggins.
Oh my gosh. I think my mom showed me an episode where this guy was involved.
That's
I'm
he
sure if people are into this, I'm sure some of our listeners have seen him on that show.
That's
Yeah.
the thing is if you're into that, you may have heard about this already.
Yeah, because I went down there to visit her a couple weeks ago, and she showed me a bunch of ghost shows. Some of them were ghost adventures, and there was a priest. There was also like this badass nun who like wore a leather jacket and was just like, "Get the heck out!" Like it was interesting. Anyway.
So the house was actually bought by Zach Baggins for $35,000 in January of 2014,
Oh.
just after the exorcism case had been made public. So he starts filming at the house in 2014. Throughout the year, Baggins filmed a documentary at the house entitled The Demon House. Primary filming ended in January 2015, and Baggins claimed in November 2014 that, quote, we are in the last month of post-production. The Demon House project has given me more knowledge about the dark force that exists out there than anything I've ever investigated before. With Ghost Adventures, we commonly take 4 days to do an investigation. With this, I've been able to take 2 years. Seeing how many people have been affected by the house, people from all walks of life, it's really enabled me to study how these demons work. It's a lot different than most people perceive. The aspect of intelligence that these demons exhibit. They work in ways that we cannot comprehend. There are limits pertaining to how much you can study something that is more advanced than we are. It's been so hard for me to get to the point of ending this film. It's a big challenge for me to come to terms with the fact that the final month of production on this project is here. The hardest thing for me to say is, okay, we have to stop filming now because I don't want to. I really want to keep filming in this house for a long time, but it's dangerous. Like I said, it has affected people who have the highest level of knowledge that you possibly could have of the paranormal. People who are widely recognized worldwide as being at the top of their field, whether it be demonology, parapsychology, or psychophysiology. This makes me recognize that there are limits to how much further I should keep going on this case. The house keeps drawing me back there, but when I am there, I'm not me. A lot of people who have been there have told me that they felt the same way. While the documentary was originally announced for 2015, it got rescheduled to 2016 and then got released in 2018. Because of the media attention that the alleged event caused, the house became the target of vandals as well as attempted seances. On January 19th, 2016, the house was demolished by Baggins as part of the film, it was part of the movie he had filmed at the location. In between being possessed each week on his television shows, Baggins claimed, something was inside that house that had the ability to do things that I've never seen before. Things that others carrying the highest forms of credibility couldn't explain either. There was something there that was very dark, yet highly intelligent and powerful.
Hmm.
For her part, Ammons said it was not the psychologist who resolved her problem, but God. When you hear something like this, she said, don't assume it's not real because I've lived it. I know it's real.
Man, what a story. I kind of want to see that documentary.
I do too. I didn't stumble on that part until actually as I was wrapping everything up and just kind of wanted to mention that it's out there. So I can't speak to its credibility, um, but it gained a lot of attention. I'm sure you could see the house. It's yeah. It looks like an old house.
Yeah.
It looks like you could film a horror movie there, honestly.
Small family home. Yeah, man. I want to see if I can find that movie.
I'm sure you can, and that's
Yeah.
something I'm gonna watch it. It's something I will probably follow up with at some point. Not like a full episode, just be like, hey, this is what I thought.
Man, what a
So,
crazy story, Patrick. Thank you.
so that is the House of 200 Demons.
Whoo! Ugh. Well, I'm glad it worked out for everyone. I'm glad the house is destroyed.
Yeah.
Um,
Of course, those poor displaced demons now. What are they doing these days?
they're just out. They're just out and about, man. Maybe they scattered.
I don't know.
It's interesting that it'd be interesting to see if he found any new evidence, because that would really contradict the whole landlord's thing. That, you know what I mean?
I was curious about that too, and I couldn't find anything. I lean towards if there was something actually connected to the house, because I do kind of think there's something to that stuff they found under the stairs.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think, and I think there was something likely occult going on. There was some sort of practices in witchcraft or something that were going on there at some point before they'd moved in. But I also do think I don't know that I believe the hex angle from the priest that
Yeah.
he thinks that like a curse has been placed on her. I think
That was an early theory, though.
I kind of wonder, and there's stuff I didn't include as much of, like again, like questioning whether or not maybe she'd been kind of dealing with spirituality in different ways,
Yeah.
with clairvoyance and stuff. Like I don't know, it kind of seemed like maybe she'd already been familiar with that stuff. So I kind of wonder if she'd opened herself up to something. I think it was a convergence of different things happening, though.
There could
That
be different portals places, but unless you are an easy target, you wouldn't know. You know what I mean? Like,
that's also possible too. Maybe it
shit.
is. That was always a thing there. Just nobody else had really, or at least nobody was bothered or interacted to the point where it became a thing.
Right. Until she had opened herself up to something.
Yeah.
Man, that's crazy. I never heard a story where like cops are just like hanging out of personal curiosity and like,
Well, that's what made me kind of decide to bring it on the show for this. I'm like, I don't know how you argue with medical professionals. And again, back to the beginning, I really think whoever the hospital professionals were that tried to explain off the kid gliding up the wall
yeah,
backwards,
they
I
just
think
had to
are
do that.
I think they were just trying to cover themselves and discredit the situation that happened in their hospital.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. This is some demon stuff, man.
Because there was only those handful of people in the room, and they all said the same thing happened. And then hospital staff elsewhere in the hospital are saying it didn't. I'm gonna go with the people that were in the room.
I am too. Especially one of them was so freaked out she ran out the room. And you're
Yeah,
telling me it's like a circus trick. Yeah.
yeah, and it's a 7-year-old. Again, it was a 7-year-old, almost 8-year-old doing it.
Also, it was his grandma. Which I don't know
Yeah,
how old
and
his grandma is. But you think the grandma is like supporting, like I don't know.
I saw I don't there really weren't any pictures of grandma. There was only pictures of mom, which she looked like she was probably when this was happening in 2012 because she was interviewed through like 2013 and 14, I believe. She looks like she's probably mid to late 30s, so I'm assuming mom's 50 to 60,
Yeah,
grandma's 50 to 60,
right.
more than likely. Maybe early 60s, early to mid 60s, mid 50s to mid 60s. That's what I would assume.
Yeah.
So,
Good one, man.
yeah,
I'm gonna go pray for the next 3 hours.
probably a good idea. Like I did while I was researching it. Like, please don't let me invite anything in, Jesus. Just protect me on this. I want to talk about it, but I do not want to interact with any of this. I'm good. Thank you.
No, please stay the hell away. You have no power here.
So thank you all so much for listening. Like, rate, subscribe, tell your friends. We appreciate it. Shoot us a message, comment on posts, do all the things. We appreciate it. And we will be back next week with something else weird. So thank you all. Bye.
Bye.